On today's show, an ugly third quarter sinks the Hawks in Cleveland, and they came this close to coming back, but couldn't quite pull it off in the end. We'll get into all of what transpired and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2208 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday evening into Thursday here in early to mid-April. And today's podcast is sponsored by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. And I want to encourage you at the top of the show to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out, subscribe to the show, tell your friends, and I appreciate you being here as always. We'll dive in tonight to what became a 122-116 loss for the Hawks up in Cleveland. Atlanta had the chance tonight to clinch the division title and a top 6 playoff spot with a victory. And at times, that looked like it was maybe going to happen. But instead, it's back-to-back losses for the Hawks for the first time in nearly 2 months. A frustrating kind of back and forth game in a lot of ways for Atlanta that we'll dig into as the show goes along. The Hawks were small underdogs, according to I heard the FanDuel Sportsbook in the betting market in Cleveland on this night. The Cavs were largely at full strength. No Jalen Tyson, but everybody else was available for Cleveland. And honestly, they haven't had their top 4 guys, their kind of big 4, available very often. They were all available in this game. The Hawks still without Jock Landale, but they were largely healthy beyond that. And the Hawks were actually leading the game at halftime. And then they had an absolute disaster of a third quarter, probably their worst quarter in a long time, honestly. Down as many as 18 points as a result of that, and then came all the way back. And, I have to say about this Hawks team that I've enjoyed covering this season for the most part. They have a resilient spirit that came all the way back and nearly tied or took the lead. In fact, they had 3 chances to tie or take the lead in the final minutes. They just didn't have quite enough to get over the hump down the stretch and ended up with a 6-point, 2-possession loss, essentially, in Cleveland. And look, this is a weird game. There were times when the offense was crisp, and also times where it was very stagnant on offense. Same on defense. There were some highs like the fourth quarter. There were some lows like the third quarter, which was kind of a disaster. Again, I'll get into the third quarter later on because that's where they kind of really lost this game in isolated fashion, I have to say. But I'll go with the offense first in this breakdown. And if you were unfamiliar with the podcast, what we generally do early on is kind of talk about the big picture stuff from the game. And then later on, we'll kind of dig in a little bit deeper and then talk about the player evaluations and the playoff race, etc. But they had a really slow start shooting-wise, picked it up from there. It was actually decent enough from the shooting perspective in this game. 48% from the field, 35% from 3. Not special, but not bad either for the most part. They did miss 5 of their 15 free throw attempts. Put a pin in that. Come back to that in a second. And I was at least noting in real time, and then again on the rewatch in particular, the ball movement was not as crisp as it usually is for the Hawks. Assists are not the only way to kind of measure that, but they only had 23 assists in this game. That's a very low number for this Hawks team that averages about 30 per game. So that was kind of telling. They did win the glass actually in this one, which is usually a potential area of kryptonite for the Hawks. Didn't really happen in this game at all, but they didn't turn the ball over a lot either. Ball security was fine. 13 giveaways in the entire game. They were costly when they happened, but they didn't happen all that often. And also of note, the Hawks are number 1 in the league in transition offense, basically, this year, according to Cleaning the Glass, both in frequency and efficiency. Put that all together, they are arguably the most dynamic team in the whole league at getting out and running. They ran plenty in this game. They just didn't actually convert when they did, and that was kind of limiting. Even on that, they were actually okay in half-court offense by the numbers. They had 7 guys in double figures. It's kind of misleading, though, as far as the balance is concerned. I thought Jalen Johnson struggled badly in this game, as did CJ McCollum. So the 2 guys who took 32 shots combined, they were both pretty rough in this game. And in particular, when Jalen struggles, it's going to be tough for the Hawks in some respects. I thought Nikhil was good. Jonathan Kuminga had a very big game off the bench. That was encouraging to see. But it wasn't like the offense was terribly impressive at any single point. And even when the defense kind of was responsible for the letdown in the third, the offense only scored 20 points. Like they weren't like suddenly keeping up, making this into the shot-happy game in the third quarter. So the offense was not particularly good, I didn't think, even with some bright spots from the likes of Nikhil and Kuminga, but a night where it wasn't like unwinnable because of the offense, just not the best performance in the world. Defensively, they have about a 118 defensive rating, which is not horrific, but not particularly good. And honestly, that was helped a lot by the fourth quarter. And credit the Hawks. They allowed 18 points in the fourth as they had that massive comeback bid that almost came to fruition. Quinn Snyder said post-game from the podium that the comeback was basically because of the defense, and I agree with that. If you watch the game back in the fourth quarter, they were definitely flying around and playing good defense. I think particularly Dyson Daniels and Mo Gueye were awesome in the fourth on defense. But at times in the first three quarters, and I think the entire third quarter, it was pretty rough on defense for a team that's been playing very well man on the floor for a while. And that's what that kind of takes us to this. So if you look at this, the two teams' stats side by side in this game, kind of the big areas of note. Field goal percentage, the Hawks had a small advantage. Three-pointers actually almost identical in this game. Assists, almost identical. Turnovers were very similar. Rebounds, very similar. It's very, very similar across the board. And all of the kind of big picture, standard traditional stats, with the clear exception of free throws. So I got a lot of questions about this, and I want to end the first segment kind of on this to some degree. I said on social media near the end of the game that it would be a good time, in my view, for Quinn Snyder to take a fine for officiating criticism, because I'll kind of do that for him here. Quinn did not do that. He is usually buttoned up, I have to say. But I thought it was a very poorly officiated game. And I don't do a lot of officiating talk on the podcast. I don't really like to do that. I like to talk about basketball, and fans get mad, and I get frustrated too when the officiating is bad. I thought the Hawks got the brunt of it in this one. There were some bad calls their way too, I have to say. It's never only one-sided in a game like this. But in the end, the Cavs took 35 free throws, and the Hawks had 15 free throws. And Quinn did acknowledge that after the game. 20 more free throw attempts. And also the foul disparity was 25 called on the Hawks to 14 on the Cavs. Now, that's not gospel to say that officiating was bad or that it was only lopsided or anything like that. In fact, I've watched games plenty where, yes, there's a disparity, but there's like a reason for it. Like sometimes when there's one team that's like thrives on getting to the line, or one player, that free throw disparities are not indicative always of bad officiating. In this game, the Cavs are not some huge high free throw team. They're like middle of the pack in free throws on offense and defense. The Hawks are kind of similar in that way. Not a huge free throw team on either end of the floor. So I will say, on top of that, Jalen and Dyson both fouled out. Nikhil was in foul trouble throughout the game, and that was not a coincidence. And yes, James Harden draws fouls, but he only had five free throw attempts. He's kind of the caricature guy, but he didn't draw a lot of fouls in this game. It was mostly Mobley and Allen, who had 21 combined, more than the Hawks did, just the two of them in this game. And I don't rant about that often, but I think it was worth acknowledging that the Hawks did not have a friendly whistle in this game. And free throw disparities could be what they are, but if you, again, line it up side by side, all the numbers, the only area that was decisively in favor of the Cavs was that they got to the line 20 more times. And to their credit, they made their free throws, and the Hawks didn't. The Hawks were only 10 of 15. The Cavs were 28 of 35. So, hey, what the Hawks can control is making more of the free throws. They missed 5. That gets you beat sometimes on the margins. But, yeah, I just want to throw it out there and say it. Like, I'm not, rant and rave about how that was the only reason why the Hawks lost the game. People want me to say that. I'm not saying that. The Hawks did not play that well in this game. But I would say it was a factor along the way, especially when you line up free throw attempts, which, again, Quinn did. And look, Quinn said this diplomatically. The Hawks had some bad fouls too, and that's true. Like I will not say that all 20 was because of weird officiating, but it was a little bit extreme, I thought. And look, to wrap up the first segment, if you want to find it, there's some solace to be taken here. Like the Hawks lost this game. I know it's frustrating. People are getting a little bit over their skis a little bit with their frustrations. I get it, but they lost a two-possession game on the road to essentially the full-strength Cavs on a night when Jalen Johnson was about as bad as he could possibly be, honestly. He had one of his worst games of the season. And they had the brutal free throw situation too. So if you just say, look, Jalen's going to be terrible, and the Hawks are going to get free throw disparity to death, that's a bad spot. Now, that won't make anybody feel great. I understand that. But even in 2 straight losses, they came to the Knicks and the Cavs, 2 very good teams, in close games. They weren't getting blown out by bad teams or any of that. And look, the playoffs are coming, and the bar is higher. And I will not argue otherwise. I will always say playoff basketball is a different sport. And it really is in some ways. And there's plenty of stuff to clean up. There is. They got to be better. The Hawks did not play great in this game. Jalen's got to be better. Boston move more. Defensively, clean up some stuff. After watching the film, I will say the Hawks played a little bit better than I thought watching live. That sometimes happens when I am, not, frantically taking notes and all that stuff. With that said, you can kind of see what you want to see. If you want to be crashing out and saying this is a playoff preview and the Hawks lost this game and they could have won it, all that is true. But you could also say the Hawks lost this game very narrowly on the road against the healthy Cavs, basically. And they did it while having some, I would say, challenging circumstances. So if you want to find some solace in that, I probably could. And then later on, we'll get into this too. Like there were some rotation questions in this one. Ricochet got a DNP. That's a shocking development in some respects. That's coming up in a second. But yeah, I'm not in the meltdown mode right now as a objective Hawks observer, but you can see what you want to see. And on the bright side for the Hawks, they have plenty of chances to rectify this over the last 2 games of the season, and they have a literal rematch against this team in State Farm Arena on Friday. So we'll have to wait long to kind of correct some of the issues, and we'll see if they can do that in only about 48 hours. Okay, in a second, I'll dive into how this game unfolded, rotations, the third quarter disaster for Atlanta, and much more. It's coming up in just one moment. The NBA playoffs are here. In the playoffs, every single possession matters. Every matchup is magnified, and every single game can swing a potential series. And right now, FanDuel's offering new customers. And a great way to get on the action right now, you can bet just $5, you get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins at FanDuel. The app makes it really easy to follow the action with player stats and trends and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insights really matter because when you're looking to kind of parse through stars and role players, key moments, all that stuff's in one place at FanDuel. Makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And at FanDuel, they also have different kinds of lines and ways to play. Point spreads, they have totals, money lines, player props, game props, parlays, and futures all in one spot. And of course, they have you covered across the board with different sports offerings. The NBA has made a bit on this podcast, of course, but FanDuel also has baseball. They have football. They have golf and hockey. It's the Masters this week, for example. They have soccer and auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And one more time, about just $5, you get $250. It's a lot of money in bonus bets if your first bet wins at FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. It is tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that is not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if you're actually going to get your situation handled. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to the TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you are done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every single dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing that your taxes are being handled right. At TurboTax.com/local. That's TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Thank you for being here, as always, Locked On Hawks, and making your first listen each and every day. Be Locked On Hawks, and if you ever want to go ad-free along the way, get some more perks, you can join the Everydayer Club right now by visiting lockedonhawks.supercast.com. And we'll dive back in now to how this game unfolded. The Hawks were actually down 14-5 after about 5 minutes, and it was actually the offense out of the gate that was struggling for the Hawks. They had 5 points in the first 10 possessions of the game. They went 1 of 8 on twos, which kind of brought back some memories of that New York game on Monday where they couldn't make a shot inside the arc. It got better from there, for sure. Ironically, though, the disaster stretch on offense actually ended with a Dyson 3, and he's been making threes much more in recent days, which is encouraging. On defense, the Hawks actually had Dyson on Harden and Nikhil on Mitchell to open the game. That was the primary look, barring foul trouble. And Dyson did a great job on Harden the entire game. Harden had 21 points on 25 shooting possessions, so kudos to Dyson on that matchup. People ask kind of why that would be, because Mitchell's better than Harden right now in 2026. But the thing is, just like physicality-wise, Dyson is bigger and stronger than Nikhil. Harden is a tank, and basically Nikhil has a better matchup with Mitchell than with Harden. So that's kind of why you do that. People ask that question. Pretty logical, but there you go. The Cavs made some shots early on to put the Hawks behind the 8 ball, but the Hawks did come back and tie the game late in the quarter. And it was tied until the last about 30 seconds of the fourth quarter, of that first period, with some ugliness at the end of the quarter, which happened later as well. All right, to the rotation. First of all, the usual stuff. Gabe Vincent came in, backup guard, normal stuff there. He played 15 minutes, played pretty well. Jonathan Kuminga had a good game here. He had a red hot start, 14 points in the first 8 minutes that he played on the floor. Cooled off from there, but was very good in the first half and had a good game overall. Played 31 minutes. That is a high for him in Atlanta. Keep that in mind. Then things got a little bit different. Now, Mo Gaye played backup center. That was not surprising to me, but it was notable because they did bring in Tony Bradley. I will say Jared Allen is not exactly Mitchell Robinson, so I think it was more geared to a Mo Gaye game than it was a Tony Bradley game in the way that New York was, but that was no confusion at all. It was just Mo Gaye, backup center. He played very well in this game as well. The real surprise was that Zachary Ricochet got a DNP CD. And if you don't know what that means, that's a did not play coach's decision. That's the first time in Ricochet's entire career that he has been healthy and active and not played. Now, that is less surprising now than it would have been a few weeks ago because Zach's playing time has gone down. I spent a lot of time on this Monday night on the show talking about how Ricochet played a season low, career low 7 minutes in that game. They're definitely playing a playoff kind of rotation right now. They're playing guys more minutes. All the stars are playing more minutes than they had been in the past. Kuminga's pushing more, and then it's basically been Vincent for a little bit of time and a backup center, and then a backup wing has been Zach, but only for a limited amount of time. So my alarm bells went off right away when Kispert came in the game first, because Kispert has not played against a real opponent in about 2 weeks. He played against the Nets, but other than that, he's been getting DNPs. So for whatever reason, they chose to play Kispert over Ricochet in this game. And unfortunately, there wasn't a question asked to Quinn about this after the game. He did get asked on Monday about playing Ricochet less, and he essentially gave a zero answer, as he often does. And that's the norm. By the way, a sidebar, he gave a shocking answer on 92.9 The Game about Goga Batadze and expressed some real fire in a way he just never does with the media. And people are saying that's me. Sports radio is different than the media. The guys who are asking questions on the radio are not at press conferences. They're not games. That's not a media interview in the same way. So for whatever reason, Quinn felt more comfortable opening up in that setting than he does to the actual beat. I don't know. It was very strange. But I joked on Twitter today, maybe the only way we'll find out about Ricochet and the actual explanation is to be asked on radio. Alas. But generously, it could be trying to figure out stuff for the rotation in the playoffs. Like they're playing the Cavs twice in 3 days. Maybe they try Ricochet on Friday instead of Kispert. Same with Tony Bradley, maybe. I don't know. But they didn't experiment any other way in the game. They played the rest of the rotation pretty straight ahead. Friend of the podcast and frequent guest Tower Jones has a theory that I think is pretty reasonable about how when Mo Gueye is playing backup center, Ricochet's life is a little bit harder. And because he's thin in the way that Mo also is, not super physical in that same way. Now, going to Kispert doesn't do anything for you in that area. And that's where I'll leave this for now is I think it's kind of indefensible to play Corey Kispert over Ricochet. I didn't think it was crazy to play Ricochet 7 minutes on Monday. I really didn't. They played that as a playoff rotation. If they played 8 guys in this game, if they played only the starters, Kuminga, Mo, and Gabe Vincent, I would be less bothered about a DNP for Zach. I wouldn't love it, to be very clear, but I wouldn't really hate it. I really hated playing Corey Kispert for 7 minutes. It's not about Corey Kispert. It's not personal with him. He actually had a game where he played 7.5 minutes without registering a single stat, which is actually kind of hard to do. He didn't kill them, but he was getting picked on defensively, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't see a rationale for playing Kispert over Ricochet, but I'll leave it there for now. That could be its own podcast. I don't know if it'll change. We'll see how Friday goes, but him not playing a lot is not surprising. Him getting a DNP with Kispert playing was a little bit alarming to me. Anyway, the Hawks had come alive a little bit on offense late in the first half. Part of that was Kuminga playing well. They had some defensive breakdowns, though, at the same time, that were pretty gnarly. The fouls picked up early and often. They had 9 in the first 15 minutes, 2 on Nikhil, 2 on Dyson. The bench was clearly frustrated the entire way. In the first half, it was 18-3 in free throw attempts, which was even worse than the second half. So that was it was early and often in this game. They had one big run late in the half, 15-3 run to go by 11 points. But then they allowed Mitchell to score 4 points in 30 seconds to kind of cut in that margin. Jalen had a rough end of the half, got stripped. That led to a Mitchell bucket at the end. But the Hawks had 38 points on 59% shooting with 0 turnovers in the second quarter. So they had a pretty high with that offense in that period. Unfortunately, they gave it all back in the third. So the third quarter was really nasty. As alluded to earlier, it was an 11-3 run right away. The entire lead was gone in 2.5 minutes. Dyson got a third foul, which did not thrill the bench. It was kind of a bad call. There's a little bit of stabilization. Then Harden got going. He actually hit 3 threes after not doing much the entire game other than that, basically. And Cleveland pushed the lead up to 9. They had 29 points in the first 7 minutes of the third quarter and kept going from there. They ended up with 44 points in the period on about a 175 offensive rating. That is insane for a quarter against a real team. The Cavs did shoot too well from 3. They were 7 of 10, which is part of that. But they was still terrible defensively from the Hawks. Too many layups, too many breakdowns, too many mess ups. Basically, offensively, it wasn't any better. 8 turnovers. That was part of why it was so bad defensively. It was that the offense gave them no favors, but they missed 4 free throws. They missed 6 threes. Like, it was just a full-on nightmare. And look, quarter for quarter, maybe you could say one of the quarters against Brooklyn in that game they won in Atlanta, they had to come back in a couple weeks, a few weeks ago now, might have been worse, but I could argue pretty easily it was their worst quarter in 2 months, essentially, or 7 weeks or so. And that's what lost them the game. And they did, to their credit, they came back, but that was not quite enough in the end. They were down 18 points with 10 minutes to go. They came back. Gueye was awesome in the fourth quarter. They actually went on an 8-0 run to get back within 10 that they kind of had to have right away. Quinn then lost the challenge on Jalen's 5th foul. I didn't mind that challenge at all. That was a good challenge, a big moment, and a bad call that was not overturned. That was magnified more when Cleveland challenged and won later in the game. I'm sure the bench did not enjoy that. But to their credit, that didn't stop them. They had that 8-0 run became an 18-2 overall run because of Nikhil, Dyson on a dunk. Mo was awesome defensively. The Cavs scored 2 points in 5.5 minutes, and it was back to being an actual ball game. Fast forward a little bit here. The Hawks had 3 chances in the last 4 minutes to either tie or take the lead. They had the ball down to 3 times, and they didn't score any of the times. McCollum missed 2 jump shots in that time. They had a turnover from Nikhil as well. They kept fouling Mitchell. That was bad. I thought McCollum was a little bit too thirsty late in the game. That cost them. Jalen was, of course, out by this point because he fouled out moments before that. They had to get a stop at the very end, down 4. They get the stop. Mitchell's called for an offensive foul for hooking Dyson, which he did. The Cavs, though, challenged it. They won. That was a brutal overturn, I thought, and maybe letter of the law, sure, but close to call, and yikes to have that basically decide the game. He goes to the line, makes both, 6-point game, and it's not wholly over at that point in time, but when the Hawks didn't score on the ensuing trip, Kuminga, who was really good in this game, had a very rough last 2 minutes. The game was probably over anyway, but it was nightmare stuff at the end, and I could have gone more play-by-play there, but just worth noting that the Hawks came back. They had chances. They played really well for the lion's share of the fourth quarter, but it takes a lot of energy to expend that kind of comeback. And for whatever reason, between some misses by McCollum, some bad process moments, they just couldn't get over the top by the end. Okay, in a second, I'll dive into how this game unfolded from a player standpoint, plus a look at the playoff standings and the playoff race right now, what the Hawks have to do in the future, Friday's game, and more. It's coming up in just 1 moment. Spring is a natural reset point. If there's one thing that actually can quietly cost your business money, it is messy communication, missed calls, scattered texts, and no clear thread of who said what and when. That's why today's show is sponsored by the folks at Quo, spelled Quo, and it's a smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, and Quo is trusted by more than 90,000 businesses right now. Let your entire team share one business number, so that actually allows you to never miss a call or a text or an opportunity of any kind. And one great thing about Quo is that they actually have everything living on one clean thread: calls, texts, voicemails, etc. And the whole team can see the entire conversation, so nothing actually falls through the cracks with Quo. And they have AI summaries as well if you want to, by saving serious time by logging calls, highlighting next steps automatically, and more. It makes your businesses feel more organized and more responsive along the way. Make this a season that no opportunity and no customer slips away from you. You can try Quo for free right now. You get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's Quo, QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, before I dive into the player evaluations in this spot and look at the standings quickly, the only game that impacted the Hawks directly other than their own game tonight was actually Orlando, who actually they won against Minnesota. So that's not a great result for the Hawks, but the situation is still the same. Atlanta just has to win a game at some point to avoid falling into the play-in. They got 2 more chances: Cleveland on Friday and Miami on Sunday. The Hawks right now are still in 5th. Toronto is in 6th. They're a half game behind. And tomorrow, Thursday, Toronto faces Miami in Toronto. And also Philadelphia plays in Houston. Those are the 2 games to watch on Thursday. But the Hawks still are in control of their own destiny. They just could have won tonight and didn't. And Orlando is hot right now. They won 4 games in a row. Come back from the dead a little bit. Miami's the only team that's been eliminated from the top 6 race. So the Hawks still, as of right now, could finish between 5 and 9 anywhere in there. But they do win some tiebreaker scenarios. They still are in good shape when it comes to the percentages, but they have to just pick up a win at some point along the way to help themselves out. Okay, back to the players. Mixed bag here, as you might expect. The bench, was better on the whole. A couple guys played well. I mentioned before, Kispert was the one who played the least, 7 minutes, literally 0 points on 0 for 0 from the floor, zeros across the board, literally zeros across the board. One thing that I will give Kevin Chouinard credit for on Hawks.com was pointing this out. The Cavs were so obviously and aggressively hunting Kispert with Mitchell, which is just going to happen. And on one hand, it's easier to take that when it's like a real key piece. So, for example, McCollum gets hunted as well. But McCollum gives you enough on offense where it's like you understand why he's playing. Kispert doesn't do that for you. Like, to have him out there and have him not attempt a single shot in 7 minutes and then get hunted the entire time defensively is like kind of a tough sell. But Corey wasn't like awful. He competed. He was actually not that bad on Mitchell by his standards. But I don't think it was a lot going on there. This is going to sound funny. Mo Gueye was really good. And Mo Gueye finished with 3 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 fouls, and was really good. Like 3 stocks plus 25. Now, granted, that's a little bit misleading because that's like crazy, but I thought Mo was really good defensively. He had a 3. He was on the floor for that huge run in the fourth quarter, I should say. So that's part of that. Doesn't like solve every problem. Mo's still going to be a question mark to some degree at center, where it's not his best position all the time. But he was really good here and was flying around defensively. And havoc creation is Mo's superpower on defense. Gabe Vincent, 10 points on 3 shots. He made 3 threes. That's basically all he did, but he made 3 threes. He did miss 2 free throws, but I thought Gabe was fine, like rock solid, nothing crazy, nothing awesome or bad. Kuminga had a good game for sure. First half better than the second half. 24 points on 21 shooting possessions. Like, so not super duper efficient for JK, but he was 9 of 13 on 2s. There was a lot of rim pressure in an encouraging way. That's his number one trait in the NBA. It has been for a while, just getting to the rim, which Quinn talked about a lot post game. Like, he did that. That was a very encouraging sign for him. He was able to beat his guy off the dribble, get there consistently throughout the game, rebounded the ball pretty well as well. 2-7 from 3. Regression happening there a little bit. Defensively, not like perfect, but was totally fine there. I thought he played really well. He cooled off a little bit in the second half, but certainly one of the more positive nights for anyone and led the team, second in the team in scoring with 24 points in this game. To the starters, I thought McCollum was like actively bad in this one. 12 points on 6 of 16 from the floor. He was 6 of 13 on 2s, 0 of 3 from 3. Just overshooting too. Like, it did have 4 assists, but like, there was at least 5-6 times on the rewatch on the film where like he's got to pass the ball to an open shooter and he doesn't do it. So that's like him. He's going to be more of a shooter scorer than a passer always, but a little bit overzealous there. Did have a couple of nice swipe down blocks, quote unquote blocks. They're more of like a steal, but so he competed defensively, but he got hunted and was not a good game for McCollum. Like, full stop. Dyson was fine. 12 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals and a block. Did foul out of the game. Was 4 of 8 on 2s, 1 of 3 from 3. Not a special Dyson game, but did a good job on Harden for the most part. Held him firmly in check in this game, and the fouls were at least 2 or 3 of the calls were a little bit soft. Okongwu, 18 points, 5 rebounds in 33 minutes. Good offensive game for Okongwu. Defensively, not his best work, I didn't think. I'm not going to do the wars all day. I was on Twitter about this today. Like, Okongwu's had a good season. He's not the second coming of God either. Like, he's a fine starting player. It's fine. But he was just okay in this game. He didn't do anything fantastically defensively. He did make his shots from actually only took 2 threes, which is a little bit curious. Normally he's on the perimeter a little bit more than he was in this one, but there's that. Nikhil was good. 25 points for Alexander Walker on 6 of 10 on 2s, 4 of 9 from 3, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. It turned it over 4 times. Like, wasn't like an A+ Nikhil game, but certainly was a good Nikhil game. Like, he's usually really good. And then lastly, Jalen Johnson. Now, I don't mean to pile on. Jalen's had a great season. Like, All-NBA should be a shoe-in for All-NBA, in my opinion. Full stop. I'm leading with that to say he was pretty terrible in this game. 12 points on 4-16 from the floor, I should say. I can get that out. 4 of 11 from 2, 0 of 5 from 3. 11 rebounds does help. 6 assists does help. But, minus 10 in the game. Defensively was, like, really poor. Like, lots of breakdowns and, like, not a ton of effort defensively, I didn't think, in this game. I would say it was, like, full stop one of his worst 5 games of the year. He tied season low for field percentage in the game, 25%. 4th fewest points of the season. Like, he'll have better games. I'm not worried about Jalen Johnson, but it was, like, if he plays a decent game, they probably win. That's my thesis of this night. Obviously, a lot of other things went wrong. It was not only about Jalen, but if he's like a C+ Jalen instead of a D- or lower Jalen, they'd probably win, or at least it would have been closer than it was. So, yeah, it happens. But when you're the best player, you get a little bit of heat when things don't go well, and he certainly earned that heat a little bit in this game. All right, from here, the Hawks, of course, host the Cavs in the second half of a home-and-home set on Friday, and that'll be their next game on the agenda. Like, obviously, that's a big one. People asked me today, like, are the Cavs going to try in that game? I don't know the answer to that. It might honestly be impacted by what happens with New York. The Knicks play the Celtics on Thursday. If the Knicks lose that game, then the Cavs are going to have to try, I would guess, on Friday, because then they'll be tied in the standings with the Knicks. Now, they lose a tiebreaker with New York, but there's a debate happening. I might have to weigh in about that's more of a Cavs thing, but like who the Cavs want to play. Do they want to be the 3 seed? Do they want to be the 4 seed? Do you want to play the Hawks, the Raptors, the Magic? Do you want to play the Celtics in the second round? Like, there's questions to be answered on the Cavs side, but TBD as to whether the Cavs will play everybody on Friday. I think they probably will, but we'll see. The Hawks obviously need to win at some point, so Friday would be a good time to do that at home, and I'm sure they'll have revenge on their minds when the Cavs come to town for the finale at home. By the way, their last home game of the season that's guaranteed to happen as of right now. So stay tuned for that. We'll have a full breakdown of that game as it would come. I will probably have a show tomorrow. I don't know exactly when it's going to come, if it does, but stay tuned for that. I'll keep you updated, and please go ahead and subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you get your podcast. If you can hear it, my voice is going a little bit, so hopefully I'll be able to hang in there for lots of talking over the next couple of weeks. But Locked On Hawks, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow me on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, and follow my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody, enjoy your Wednesday into Thursday, and we'll see you all next time.